Welcome and thank you for listening to the DFRI podcast. Your ongoing support help us to continue promoting great employee relations in the workplace. Visit dfrihr.com/free trial and allow us to answer your questions free for 30. Welcome to another episode of the DFRI podcast. Our topic today is on outlining some of the legal issues to consider when creating a company handbook. Before we dive into that, I want everyone to remember that the handbook is intended to outline your company's significant policies and procedures. It's not to cover every single situation that may arise in the course of the employment relationship. Therefore, it should focus on those issues that are most relevant to you as an employer instead of situations that seldom or if ever arise or apply to only a small group of employees. Also, we want to avoid duplicating details that are covered in other employee publications. For instance, while you may want to include a brief statement on employee benefits and outline of eligibility for coverage in the handbook, but there is no need to address at length information that is provided in the organization's benefits information package. There is no need to outline the same information again in the handbook. So in these instances, the handbook should simply tell the employees where they can obtain further information if necessary. I recommend to avoid including information that is subject to frequent change because this will quickly render the new handbook out of date. And let's say a detailed description of the use of the company's time clock, for example, it may require updating if you should purchase another type of system. For example, detailed information about how the company's time clock should be used can be avoided because the minute that you update the time clock system, then that information would cause the handbook to become invalid. It is advisable to omit these instructions from the handbook and post them elsewhere. And also keep in mind that because employees are likely to take the handbook home and show it to their friends and family members, it's good to be careful not to include confidential information and other details you may not want outsiders to know about your company. 30 days. I've seen many employers resist the notion of adding language or legal language to the employee handbook. That is completely understandable because most companies want an employee-friendly document and not a legal instrument that could alienate and frighten employees. However, In creating your handbook, the most important legal consideration is ensuring that your policy manual will not be taken as an employment contract or a guarantee that employees can remain employed as long as they follow the policies described in the handbook. So for this reason, you'll need to add legal disclaimers. And I recommend adding them in large and bold type letters, as they should be repeated several times in the handbook, especially if your handbook is a bit longer than the average length. An example of a disclaimer can be stated as, this handbook is intended as a guide only and is not intended to a complete description of your company's policies and procedures. Another one can be stated as, this list is intended as an example only and is not intended to include all acts that could lead to employee disciplinary action. And this statement in itself allows you to discipline or terminate an employee for a reason that is not specifically mentioned in your progressive disciplinary policy. And lastly, if you want to avoid any unwanted changes or changes by unauthorized personnel to the handbook itself, you can also add a disclaimer that says, this handbook can only be changed in writing by, there you would list whoever is designated to make any changes. And that way an employee cannot come and say their supervisor or anyone else in the company authorized a deviation from the written policies and procedures. I often get questions about involving attorneys in the process of writing or drafting the handbook. Now, although you can save a considerable amount of money by drafting the handbook yourself, I advise to submit a draft to an attorney for review before releasing it to employees. This way, you can ensure that the policies comply with all state laws and that disclaimers are enough to protect you when the need arises.
Amazon bestsellers, The Development Alternative, and The Line Manager are now available for corporate discount on bulk orders. To get your copies now, call 877-803-3486.